Hello everyone and welcome to a little bit more history. Today's learning objective then is to understand and develop knowledge of ancient Egyptian burial practice. Now, when we look at our review of last week, remember we were looking about ancient Egyptians and the different gods that they believed in. Okay, so if you need to brush up your memory, have a little look at the work you did last week. And today's focus is going to be mainly on mummification. Okay, so as we can see, some mummies here seem to have woken up. Now, how to make a mummy. Okay, this is how mummies were made. And what essentially happened is that when wealthy, and it tended to be the very, very wealthy members of the ancient Egyptian society died, they were mummified. Okay, and we'll learn about in a minute why they were mummified. But first we're going to look at the process. Okay, so the body was washed with palm oil and water from the river. Next, the brains were pulled out through the nostrils using a hook and filled the skull with sawdust or a resin. Third, they were cut out the internal body organs except the heart, because remember that was weighed. If you remember last week when they got into the afterlife, that was weighed. They put the liver, lungs, intestines and stomach in canopic jars to dry. Fourth, they cover the body with natron salt and they leave it to dry for 40 days. After the 40 days, they remove the natron and pack the body with straw, dry grass and linen. They applied makeup, fake eyes and hair to make it look nice. They then wrapped the body in linen fabric, adding amulets and a Book of the Dead. And finally they were placed in a sarcophagus and moved to the pyramid. So if you think carefully here, do you think many peasants would have been mummified like this? Well, probably not, because of the expense that went involved with it. And they most likely would not have been buried in a pyramid, because that tended to be the most important people in the society. Now, I've got some more lovely horrible history bits and pieces for you here. So, in ancient Egypt, the surefire way of getting to the afterlife was to be mummified. The Egyptians turned this into a super slick process, but we warned it is gruesome. So, here we go, wake up call. Before washing your body in water and salt, the embalmers checked that you're actually dead by shouting at you and tickling your feet with a feather. That definitely worked for me, I'm very ticklish. 2. No brainer. Your brain is yanked out with a long hook through your nose, then chucked away. Number 3, gutted. Your lungs, stomach, we've said this already, haven't we? Moved into canopic jars. And let's have a look at 4. We talked about the salting process already. Then 5, you're given your nice little makeover. You're wrapped in this little cloth here. It's not toilet paper, it's things like linen and then almost bandages that are glued together. Moving on to 7. Face facts. The chief embalmer dressed up as Anubis, okay, one of those gods from last week, places a face on your mask. This mask was made to look like you, but were usually much better looking. Coffin fit. Your mummified body is now snugly popped into its sarcophagus. And it says here, handy extras. Sometimes limbs fell off during the whole grisly process and wooden ones had to be stuck on instead. That's disgusting. And petrified. If you were a really wealthy person, then you'd have your pets mummified too. Oh, poor little pets. Okay, the trip of an afterlife time. No self-respecting mummy would be seen dead without the right afterlife accessories. Okay, so mummification was all about reaching the afterlife. Okay, also there's a little sarcophagus here next to the bigger sarcophagus. So something to read. The scroll of spells and prayers called the Book of the Dead. This was to help your spirit overcome the dangers of the underworld that we looked at last week, such as fierce animals and rivers of fire, and get your soul safely to the afterlife. Transport. A model boat or chariot. You don't want to have to walk everywhere when you're dead. Games. Just in case eternal life gets boring, lots of Egyptians were buried with a senet set, an Egyptian type of Ludo. Okay, so they had games with them too. Furniture. Even the dead need to sit down sometimes, so they put furniture in there as well. Servants and soldiers. In the afterlife, these models will come to life to serve you. Some pharaohs were even buried with whole model armies. Okay, so that keeps you nice protected. And food for the journey. Pack a hamper of figs, bread, and mummified meat. Yum. Makeup mirrors and combs. These will help you keep up appearances in the afterlife. Some people were buried with their favourite pair of sandals. Perhaps they wanted to protect their souls. Okay, that's a silly little joke at the end, isn't it? Now, really interesting this, isn't it? And it's, in addition, people were mummifying their pets. So it says here, like we looked at before, it wasn't just people who were mummified. The Egyptians mummified just about anything that moved. Okay, so cats, other animals, crocodiles were sacred to the crocodile head Sobek. Goodness me. Very strange, very, very strange. So these things here are what you describe as grave goods. Okay, so people bury people with important things or precious things, okay, that maybe were relevant to the people that they can use in the afterlife. So these are all known as grave goods. So here, did you know not all Egyptians were rich enough to be mummified properly? If they couldn't afford the full organ removal and bandage treatment, they could go for the cheaper option. In this case, the internal organs weren't removed when they died. Instead, cedar oil was injected up the bottom that dissolved the guts. That's disgusting as well, isn't it? But the cheapest way to get mummified was actually one of the best: to be buried in the hot, dry sand of the desert. Bodies left this way got completely dried out, so they didn't rot and were preserved for thousands of years. Okay, it's brilliant stuff, this. Now, I've got a do it, stretch it, solve it for your ancient Egyptian learning about mummification. But if you wanted to, and this is completely optional, if you have an action man or a Barbie doll or some sort of human-shaped toy at home, if you would like to, you can mummify your toy at home. And you could put this in a shoebox like this person has done here. You could wrap it in toilet roll, to be honest, it would probably work, or some sort of very thick string. Or if you've got a white shoelace spare at home or something, you could design a sarcophagus if you wanted to. You could include some grave goods. Don't know why this person's got a very nice handbag here, but never mind, this person might want to be stylish in the afterlife. Okay, and once you've done that, if you want to, of course, that is completely optional. Please do send pictures in, that would be amazing. Now, when you come to complete your work for today, here is the little sheet that we're working on. Your do it question says, who do you think was mummified in ancient Egypt? Okay, so think about the people that I just mentioned in the video that would be most likely to be mummified. Would it be poor people, wealthy people, important people, maybe slaves? Have a think. Stretch it. Can you explain the process of mummification and include some pictures with your work? Okay, so there's a double bit of work there. I'll include the horrible history cutouts below as well to give you a bit of help or for some further reading. Solve it says, I wonder why ancient Egyptians were buried with grave goods. Okay, so why would you think they were buried with grave goods? Why is that relevant? And a challenge as well says, go onto a friendly web browser and find some images of an ancient Egyptian tomb. What grave goods do you notice? Okay, and the vocabulary below that I want you to use: sarcophagus, mummification, ancient Egyptians, afterlife, gods, and grave goods. Okay, that's everything for today, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson.